Family business makes no sense. So let's talk about it.
Welcome, I'm Jon Kenfield, the Family Business Solutionist, broadcasting from Melbourne, Australia. This is another episode in the series Family Business Makes No Sense. And today I'm talking about ownership versus stewardship in a family business, and specifically ownership providing independence and stewardship providing obligation. Now, we know that it actually makes no sense to mix a family with a business because the things that make families happy conflict with the things that make businesses successful. And if you are daft or game enough to put the two together, you're going to get conflicts along the way, certainly over time. However, even though it's inevitable, there are an awful lot of really successful family businesses out there, although there are an awful lot more unsuccessful ones that have basically fallen into disrepute, imploded, destroyed families, destroyed businesses, destroyed wealth. What's the difference between the two? Having worked with hundreds of family businesses over several decades, one of the major factors that I'm very aware of is it's how they understand and deal with conflict and the common causes of conflict that arise for all sorts of reasons in all sorts of ways at all times. So this is another talk about helping you to understand another common cause of conflict, and more importantly, what you can do to prevent it happening to damage your family and your business, and to make more sense of being in a family business. So we're contrasting ownership versus stewardship with a view to understanding how the differences between the two, if they are guiding drivers within a family business environment, can lead to conflict. There's no question that these are attitudes in the leaders and owners of a family business that have a major influence on the mindsets and culture of the family that sits behind the business and the business as a reflection of the owners and or leaders' headspace. Ownership. It's a clear enough word. It means rights, entitlements, benefits, control. Here, now, mine. This is my business. This is something I've created. This is mine to do with as I see fit. I may or may not recognize responsibilities and obligations elsewhere, but fundamentally this is my train set to do with as I wish. Contrast that with stewardship, which is the concept of I am holding this precious thing for my own benefit and, in capitals, and for the benefit of future generations, maybe even generations as yet unborn. My job, therefore, is to not use it for my own benefit only. I can take reasonable benefits from it, but I really want to ideally pass on an enhanced asset to the next generation so that I'm giving them a real benefit and I am building in the process a family legacy, a sustainable legacy, if you like, for future generations. Now, if there are some family members who see themselves as owners of the business, and this is something that quite often happens as owners get older, they seem to forget or not feel themselves constrained by promises that they may have been making to children working in the business or younger siblings and the like, sometimes for decades, that one day this will all be yours, for whatever reason. If they haven't set themselves up well enough that they are no no longer in any way financially dependent on the business, if they have identified too much of their identity with being in the business to let go of it, if they enjoy all of the perks and lurks that being a business leader gives them, and so they say in their own minds and openly, well, it doesn't really matter what I said in the past, it's mine and I'll do with it exactly as I see fit, then that is very much an owner mindset. It creates incredibly stressful and heartbreaking conflict in families. For example, where an owner who has had, let's say, a son who's worked in the business for 30 years, their entire working life, on the basis this business will pass to them and their family, and suddenly father turns around and says, no, it's my business, I made it, even if they've been basically absent for the last 10 or 15 years, and the real growth has been happening under the son, who thought he was working for the benefit largely of his own family, as well as the broader family. But now the father is now saying, well, I've got a preferred daughter, son, other children, they haven't done so well in life, I need to provide for them as well. You're all my children, so I love you equally, you're going to share the business equally as well. And in the worst case I've seen, he then ended up giving, instead of 100% of the business to one son, 20% goes to one son, and the other 80% go to 4 other siblings who've never shown the slightest interest in the business and frankly intended to sell the business and just cash out of it completely. Not that they said that to the father, who had some strange starry-eyed idea that they'd all come in and help build the business after he was gone. But their plan amongst themselves was simply sell the business or get their sibling to buy them out, where the sibling who had worked in the business expected to be given it because he reckoned he'd paid sweat equity for the last 30 years, which, looking at the amount he'd been paid over that period, and his wife and his kids who come in to work in the business, he was absolutely right. But it created massive conflict in the family. The entire family fell apart over it. Mum and Dad were forbidden to ever see the children again. The planned successor almost went through divorce with his wife because of the stresses involved in the process. And the son found himself between a rock and a hard place, where he had been working and promising his wife and his children, but he also had fierce loyalty to his parents. And so from doing an abundance of the right thing his whole life, he ended up literally being a burnt offering. It was really very sad to see. Now, that was a father getting to an age where all of the promises about acting as a steward went out the window, and he was just acting like an owner. And it created huge conflict. Contrast that with another family group who, second generation in the business, decided they wanted to leave a valuable business for future generations, but it was going to be a very different business to the one that their own father had created and that they had operated for 30 years themselves. They'd successfully grown the business to a large enough point where they could afford to organise a liquidity event where they could take a third of the value of the business, and it was enough to set all of them up for some shared investment activities outside of the business and financial security for the rest of their lives. They could leave a third of it in shared business activities with the children, their own children, a number of whom from different branches of the family wanted to work with their cousins because they had undergone quite a lot of training in teamwork and recognised that keeping a reasonable pot of money in one place gave them enough to play with to augment their other income from their ordinary day jobs. And there was another third that was going to devolve to the next generation altogether. And they were then going to build a plan for a completely new business activity, which none of them were actually going to work in, but they were all going to be directors and working towards their future benefit. So the family business created by grandfather was going to change completely because the whole industry had changed. But the family continued the legacy of being in business, and it saw the importance of current generation getting good rewards for what they had done, for sharing while they were still around, interactive work with their parents, quite separate to what the parents were doing as a private investment group. And then a third part of the whole, the value of the venture, once it was all sold for tens of millions of dollars, was enough for them to choose some other business activities that they could work in jointly together for their mutual benefit. That was very much a stewardship model. Now, when we're looking at strategies and solutions to avoid families getting into conflict or to resolve conflicts once they've emerged, the first thing we would always say is try to prevent this ever happening. So as soon as you can see a divergence, as soon as you can see the warning signs that somebody who was previously going to be a steward is now showing more and more of ownership tendencies, we need to sit down with the family as a whole and work out what is the plan. Where is this going? Can we restore the original stewardship promises? If so, often the whole family is aware of the promises that have kept the son working in the business and growing it for many, many years. How does the family not only satisfy their needs and entitlements, but also honour the parents, enable them to not feel disempowered with the distribution of their own estate plans, and also not create a massive rift in the family, which means that the cousins never want to see each other, the grandparents never see their kids, and you have the whole schmozzle taking place. So this is where the family needs to sit down and have a calm conversation, probably with an independent facilitator and some advisors, talking them through their options and arriving at something which either reconfirms we are going to be stewards of the whole thing, or we're going to create some divisions or spin-offs or payouts or liquidity events or whatever it may be. And we're also going to tie that in with the parents' estate planning, so the whole family can feel, whilst at least everyone's still got their marbles, we've done the right thing by everyone and we're happy with the deal that we've done. Now, if after a proper process of facilitated negotiations, it becomes clear that stewardship is really not a viable option, it's not desired, the family members do not want to continue in business altogether, even if twos and threes of them may want to go off and do stuff together, but the whole group, it's moved now to a new generation, and the whole group does not want to be in business together. If that is the outcome after a proper analysis process, then the decision needs to be made, what is the best way to split and share the empire so that everybody is happy with the end result and the family stays together as a socially cohesive unit, even if it no longer has any shared business interests. You can look at this as a plan B if you regard plan A as a stewardship arrangement that keeps the family legacy and the enterprise as one cohesive unit. Plan B keeps the family cohesive but has less or no concern about keeping the business operations separate. Plan Bs are important. It's not a failure. It is simply a recognition of the fact this is not a family that wants to continue in business together, and you don't get to pick your family. There are many families for whom that is the right choice. If you can do that with grace and dignity, then the family has not failed, the business has not failed, and really the legacy has not failed. It is just reshaping, reforming under new circumstances. If you found this useful and if you think it may help you or others to stay out of trouble with the family business, please like, please share, let others know, and very many thanks for watching. I'm Jon Kenfield, Family Business Solutionist from Melbourne, Australia.